Welcome to Two Open Doors, the podcast that explores our power to open or close the doors of relationship with the important people in our lives. We hope you'll learn from and share your wisdom with our community. Thanks for joining us. I personally see it as unfortunate that sex positivity is relatively rare in our society. As an example, while meaningful statistics are hard to come by, it's estimated that perhaps 4% to 5% of American adults practice some form of polyamory. Adhering to the relationship escalator is much more mainstream. What this implies is that finding kindred spirits to relate to can be rather challenging. In this episode, we'll dig further into this challenge and into some possible ways to address it. Let's start by considering what it means to be sex positive. In essence, that term just means that one views sexuality as a basically healthy and positive source of pleasure, rather than as something to be feared or distrusted or suppressed. Sex positivity necessarily implies that sexual experiences are shared in a mutually consensual way that promotes personal growth and satisfaction. Sex positivity allows for the free expression of one's gender and one's sexual choices. It is founded on an education-based understanding of how sexuality works and on how it plays into our relationships. At first blush, broad social acceptance of a sex-positive stance might seem almost self-evident. Consider, though, the widespread and sometimes subtle influences of toxic masculinity on the relationship between male and female-identified people. Consider also the fear and distrust that so many women seem to hold for men. In the arena of gender, consider the extremely fraught position of the LGBTQ+ community within our society as a whole. It's hard to not conclude that ours is not a very accepting, sex-positive society. If sex positivity is indeed not a mainstream perspective in our culture, what does that imply for those who do not hold that perspective? For starters, it suggests that sex-positive folks are a minority, and that minority-majority social dynamics does apply. In particular, sex-positive people can expect to feel a great deal of pressure to conform to mainstream norms and mores. They can expect to be negatively judged and even ostracized. That promotes a circle the wagons response, in which sex-positive folk build solidarity within their sub-community and seek relationships within that community. From the preceding considerations, we've concluded that the sex-positive community is relatively small and is somewhat isolated from the mainstream society. To compound this, sex positivity finds expression in many different forms. It's not a monolithic trait. It encompasses the following special interest groups and more: swinging or lifestyle, polyamory with many variants, kink BDSM with many practices, tantra or spiritual sexuality, ecstatic dance, sensuality and sensation play, and fetishes or sexualized objects or activities, again with many variants. Human sexuality enlists the imagination, and imagination knows no limits. This wide range of interests suggests that, small as it is, the sex-positive community is itself subdivided into many different camps. Of course, a given participant may have interests in several of these areas and thus may be active in several sub-communities. Still, each additional focus area further subdivides the sex-positive community, reducing the number of interested practitioners. How do those who practice a particular aspect of sex positivity find one another? That turns out to be the figurative million-dollar question. In my own case, this has proven to be a lifelong quest. My core interest in deeply emotionally connected or soulful relationships has proven to be difficult to satisfy. Two Open Doors is an attempt on my part to find and connect with others who share this interest. While I continue to believe that there are some number of people of this ilk in the world, it appears that they don't exist in large numbers, and that they often remain isolated from one another. The first step in creating a relationship is to find one's proper companions. That is a challenging task. Leveraging my usual engineering problem-solving mindset, I envision the challenge of finding like-minded sex-positive relationship partners as a multi-step process in which I, as the seeker of satisfying relationships, am in pursuit of potential partners. As a relationship seeker, the first step of my connection process is to decide what sorts of people I'd like to invite into my life. One can think of that as selecting the population of interest. In my case, for example, I might be looking for a few polyamorous individuals who desire deep emotional connections with their partners. In the language that I introduced in my previous post, I have a narrow poly orientation, that is, seeking just one or very few partners, and I practice allopoly, with a focus on bringing joy to my partner. Having identified the population I want to connect with, I then need to figure out how to do so. That effectively becomes a kind of marketing task, through which I make myself and my connection desires known within that population. Let's consider what's involved in more detail. Finding the people that one is interested in is often not an easy task. To do that, I think it's necessary to envision what those people are like, what they enjoy doing, what places and activities they frequent, etc. In marketing lingo, that amounts to creating an avatar of one's relationship population. Going through that exercise might suggest particular online or face-to-face groups where the desired kinds of people might often be found. As an example, the Portland sex-positive community might be a likely environment to explore. Similarly, various online sites might facilitate contact with the right people. In particular, online dating sites differ in their target audience. Some, such as Tinder, might favor more casual connections, while others, such as Field or OkCupid, might focus more on those who seek deeper or non-traditional relationships. Other non-dating special interest sites, such as discussion groups, activity groups, etc., might also be worth exploring. Having chosen the most promising sites, one can then reach out to promising contacts. One can take great pains to try to find and reach out to prospective promising relationship partners, but unless they respond, it's all for naught. Two things are necessary for a prospective partner to connect with a relationship seeker. First, the partner must be aware of the seeker's interest by monitoring communications from the seeker. And second, the partner must take action to respond to those messages. There are many things that can break potential communication between a seeker and prospective partner from the partner's side. These include that the partner may not sense chemistry with the seeker, they may not be drawn to the seeker's appearance, character, or history. Or the partner may not be interested in what the seeker has to say or in the sort of connection that the seeker desires. Or the partner may not frequent the site or other communication channel where the seeker sent a message. Or finally, the partner may not be motivated to respond to the seeker's message. Most of these potential response issues parallel the sorts of unresponsiveness that can also happen in in-person interactions. However, online interactions are more susceptible to snap judgments or impersonal responses. As the preceding long, multi-step connection-seeking process suggests, finding suitable partners for deeply connected relationships is a lot like panning for gold. One needs to be panning in the right place, and sifting many pans of gravel may yield only a few shiny flecks of gold. Still, like gold, the resulting relationships can be very precious and are worth the required effort to secure. Relationships are a great source of meaning for most people. That's perhaps even more true than usual for those who put deep connections at the center of their lives. It's hard to find people who are suitable as good friends in one's life, and it's even harder to connect with those few with whom we want to share ourselves deeply and fully. Sex-positive people have to overcome the hurdle of being a minority within the population at large. They need to find and draw support from a like-minded community. Finding oneself an outlier in the overall population can feel pretty lonely at times, but the rewards for remaining in integrity with one's true self is to find that kindred spirits do exist, and that connecting with them can be a source of deeper satisfaction than is available in less deeply connected relationships. To learn more about Two Open Doors and to engage with our community, I'd like to invite you to visit the Two Open Doors private Facebook group for posts and discussion, and the Two Open Doors meetup group for events. I also invite you to connect with me directly by writing to me at Claude, C-L-A-U-D-E, at twoopendoors.com. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll use your inputs to guide my work on future blog posts and podcast episodes. Thanks for visiting Two Open Doors.